when it comes to selling stuff, this is where people go, Amy, I feel icky saying, hey, buy this thing, buy this thing. How do you sell in a way that doesn't feel salesy?
All right. The first thing is what we talked about earlier. You're not just automatically jumping into their inbox and it's been months and now you sell them something. We're not doing that because it doesn't work. The second thing is, also, when you're going to sell something in an email, think of it as a campaign. So let's say over the next 7 days, you're going to sell one of your services that you do. So over 7 days, you're going to send maybe a series of 3, I know this is going to sound crazy to some, 3 to 4 emails that you're going to talk about the service. But the reason why you want to send 3 to 4 emails is, one, the more emails you send, the more likely you are to sell. So there is a correlation. But 2, maybe in one email, you tell a story of one of your clients who has gotten some great success that others want. And then, hey, by the way, if you want this too, click here. So it's not this big, long thing about what you're selling. It's a story. The second thing is maybe to list out the benefits of this thing that you are selling. So not the features. The features is not sexy in an email. What I mean by that is, let's say that you have an hour-long consultation where someone, if you're in a construction business, they come to your house and they do this 7-point checklist. Well, the 7-point checklist, you can mention it, but that's not as sexy in an email as if you take them up and have them do the project, what that means for them. You got to get down to the emotional side of it. Why? Let's say they were totally re-landscaping your front yard. What does that do for you now? How is that person going to feel? How are they going to feel when people come over to their house? We have to talk about benefits of the results, not the features of what you're selling. So anyway, that was just one thing that is really important that I see kind of mistakes made there. And then in addition to that, you do want an email that fully maps out exactly what they're going to get. And that typically is the last email. So kind of work up to it. So it's a series of emails. You're doing stories and examples and case studies and benefits so that it's a whole campaign and not, here's an email I'm selling. This is what I'm selling. Goodbye. That does not work. So that's why I wanted to spend some time on that.
That's really good. It's kind of like, you don't go on a first date and go, all right, so ready to get married? You have to go on a bunch of dates before you can even then build that relationship and propose. And so it kind of reminds me of that analogy. And what you're talking about with the email consistency, I can think of multiple times that I've unsubscribed because I was like, oh, I don't even remember subscribing to this because they never email me.
Yes, exactly my point. I love that you said that.
And versus the people that email me, more frequently, well, I'm like, oh, I'm used to this and I actually like the content and I won't unsubscribe because I'm like, well, I'll go back and read that later. There's some good stuff in here. And so to your point, that consistency makes me go, I can trust these people. They're not just here to sell me. They've been delivering content to me that's helpful for months now. And all of a sudden they have a sale and I might be ready to make a purchase.
So true.
That's really good. So let's talk about metrics. This is the part, again, can melt people's brains a little bit, so make it easy on us. What metrics should we be looking at to determine the health of our email list if we're doing things right?
Okay, so first of all, email open rate is very important. And if you think about it, the only thing they're likely seeing is the subject line. And so that's why it's so important that you get that right. Now, sometimes you can set up your email where they see subject line and like maybe the first 2 sentences, which is why I said the first 2 sentences of any email are really important as well. So industry standard, I hate to throw out these numbers because every industry, it definitely feels like it fluctuates, but you want to get to at least 20% open rate. So that's what you're going for, at least that as your first benchmark. So email open rate, very important. The next metric is click-through rate. Now the click-through rate, this one gets really low, and so it might be daunting for some to hear, but the click-through rate is they're reading your email and now you want them to go somewhere else. If you do, you don't always have to have them go somewhere else. But let's say in my case, I send out an email and encourage people to go check out my podcast. So I'll say, click here for the latest episode of my podcast. They'll click there, go there. Email open rate, usually around 2-3%. It's very low, but it's an important metric to track. And then from there, conversion rate. So if you're selling something, you do want to pay close attention to how many people actually click on the link to buy and how many actually do buy. That number is going to very much fluctuate. My advice to you is figure out your benchmark, and then always try to improve from there, because that one really runs the gamut for different industries. And then finally, unsubscribe rate. But let's not put too much focus on unsubscribe. Every time you send an email, people will unsubscribe. Every time. Like if they don't, I'm going to be very, very, very surprised. The only thing you need to worry about unsubscribes is if you see a big spike in unsubscribes. So if you send out an email and typically you get 3 or 4 unsubscribes each email, and this one you got 50, somehow or another you probably offended somebody the people in that email, or like really missed the mark. Pay attention to the spikes, not the regular unsubscribes that happen all the time.
So don't focus on the critics. I mean, it's just people going, hey, I got to clear my inbox. I still care about you, Bob's Construction, but I just can't have another newsletter in here. And that's okay.
That's okay. Yeah. That's why we're always growing our email list. I have this motto, which is always be list building. It should happen organically in the back of your business. Once you set it up with your email service provider and you got your lead magnet set up, I don't wake up every morning thinking, I've got a list build. But every day I grow my email list. It happens in the back of my business because I set up the foundation. So anybody listening right now that's kind of overwhelmed, you're thinking, I don't know if I want to do this, but I'm kind of struggling. I'd like to see more sales. Let's just get the foundation set up, and I promise you it gets a whole lot easier.